Religious believers often hold the view that actions that God commands us to do are morally required, actions that God forbids us to do are morally wrong, and all other actions are morally neutral. The major challenges to this view are usually traced back to Plato's famous Euthyphro dialogue. However, the Euthyphro dialogue is not actually about the nature of morality per se, but about the nature of piety, that is, right religious observance. Euthyphro claims that piety consists in doing what pleases the gods. Socrates replies that, at least according to the Greek traditions, the gods frequently disagree with each other and fight, and that means that contradictory actions will be both pious and impious at the same time. Euthyphro then revises his account to say that piety consists in doing what pleases all the gods. Socrates then retorts that Euthyphro has no way of knowing what the gods love. Euthyphro claims to be a prophet who knows by divine inspiration what the gods want. Socrates expresses contempt for this kind of claim to inspiration. Now, although these arguments are interesting, they are not the most important point in the dialogue. The most important point is what is widely known as the Euthyphro dilemma. Socrates asks, is pious conduct pious because the gods love it, or do the gods command such conduct because it is pious? Let's restate this dilemma, as everyone does, as a question about morality rather than about piety. Say that some theist claims that an action is morally right if and only if it is commanded by the gods. The Socratic question is an action morally right because the gods command it, or do the gods command the action because it is morally right? Let's start with option B. On this view, God's will isn't the supreme rule of morality. God gives commands that line up with the supreme rule of morality. Normative ethical principles come before God's commands. They are fundamentally independent of God's commands, and in fact, they dictate what God will command. So even though this view of morality involves God, it doesn't make morality depend on God. The more provocative answer to the Euthyphro dilemma is option A, the position that says certain actions are right because God commands them. This position is what we call the divine command theory. Although this view has definite advantages, it also faces serious criticisms. First, it seems that if the divine command theory was true, then God can make actions like murder morally right just by commanding them. Second, if the divine command theory is true, then it seems like God is arbitrary in picking what actions will be right and wrong. Third, if the divine command theory is true, then the only relevant fact in the world is what God commands. Divine command theorists have traditionally answered these questions in one of two different ways. Some of them emphasize the freedom and sovereignty of God's will to give whatever commands he wants. Others have emphasized that God's nature prevents him from giving shocking or arbitrary commands. Study the objections and replies to the divine command theory and think about whether you think any version of it is defensible.